Well, I was in a particular mood to read these books because, of course, the movies are great. Anthony Hopkins did an amazing job with his performance, and the actual reason why I started reading these books is because I wanted to find out more information that the movies left out, and I actually wanted to know more about Hannibal Lecter. So here we have Red Dragon. I always found Will Graham fascinating, and listen, I've watched all the movies. I've watched the TV show Hannibal at least twice, and it's such a interesting thing to see all of the differences depending on the media, where you can see the differences in the movies, you can see the differences in the TV show, and you can see the differences in the source material. And it's so interesting how they just, especially in the TV show Hannibal, they just turned it into a hodgepodge of they just juggled things around and characters, and they changed characters, and Alan Bloom is Alana Bloom, and etc. etc. It's just it's so interesting, so interesting. But when it comes to Francis Dollarhide, okay, um, in the movie and in the TV show, we don't really get exactly a lot of information about him. We get snippets here and there, whereas in the book, Thomas Harris, he just lays it all out. This is a case of just he's not showing, he's telling, and we get flashbacks about his childhood, his past, and it's all laid out. I mean, it's so right there in your face. This man's childhood was just a nightmare. I mean, it's actually incredible that he did not turn out even worse than he did, for obvious reasons. I mean, his grandmother was trash. His mother was trash. Everybody was horrible to him. He did not have a good time being alive. I mean, everybody was just mean and terrible to him because he had a sort of disfigurement, I guess, but not really, a hair lip, whatever. And it is such a interesting thing to see how a psyche can be so destroyed with continuous and constant trauma. Okay, it's just actually reading about his childhood was just it was a in a way it was a difficult thing to do because it's just so obvious. It's just so painful that you can see exactly how everything that happened to him, you can see how everything affects him, and you can see it's so right in your face how everything that happened to him culminated in turning him into this monster. It's just Thomas Harris does an amazing job when it comes to the human psyche and how it responds to endless trauma. You see, this is something that I've noticed with this book, with this book and all of the other books, because I've started reading the other books. This is just my preference, but I'm not a big fan of just constant investigation. I'm not particularly I don't really like, this detailed investigation, this FBI, CSI. Let me tell you exactly how we are, checking fingerprints and we are dusting for gunpowder. And let me tell you how we're gonna, just check all of this evidence. This by the book, extremely detailed, forensic investigation. I'm not a fan of this. And I think it takes up way too much time in the book. I mean, at least 300 pages of just, let's go here, let's check let's investigate this, let's check this, let's go here, this, forensic that, putting pieces together. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't know why. To me, it becomes a bit stale. It becomes a bit repetitive, to me, it almost seems like filler. It takes up way too much time in the story. Time that we could spend with these characters, especially with Will Graham, because unfortunately, Will Graham is one of my favorite characters, especially because of the TV show. But Will Graham in the book Red Dragon is a bit lackluster in my view. In a way, he is a bit, I don't know, he is a bit watered down. In this book, he just looks at evidence, and he just has problems with his wife and adopted child. He just spends a lot of time looking at evidence and just trying to piece things together. We don't really get a lot about him specifically. We get more about what he does, his special ability. Whereas in the TV show, they actually tried to do more with his character. In the book, most of the time he spends trying to understand these two families that became the victims of the Red Dragon, and he is trying to understand why the Red Dragon picked these two families specifically. So this is mostly what his character revolves around. It's a bit unfortunate. It's a bit too bland in my view. And at the end, of course, unfortunately, it's such a tragedy that Will Graham suffers the way that he suffers for all of the good that he does. Because at the end, because of a little help from Hannibal Lecter and a bit of plot convenience, Francis Dollarhide finds out where Will Graham lives, and he kind of tries to kill him, but he ends up just mutilating him, mutilating his face, disfiguring his face, and then his wife kills Francis Dollarhide. And of course, why this happened is because Hannibal Lecter is so spiteful and is so, in a way, childish that he had to punish Will Graham because Will Graham was the one who captured Hannibal the Cannibal. And this just clicked. Francis Dollarhide suffered his entire life because of his facial deformity, right? And at the end, Francis Dollarhide mutilates Will Graham's face. So basically, Francis Dollarhide makes Will Graham into him, in a way. As Francis Dollarhide dies, he punishes Will Graham by making him experience what it was like living with this facial disfigurement. It's a bit sad, really, but it has a sort of poetry, a sort of rhyme to it, And of course, Hannibal Lecter really enjoys this. Yeah, I mean, you can tell in the letters that he sends Will Graham, it's just so filled with this satisfaction that he paid Will Graham back for capturing him. It's just something else. Jack Crawford is there, kinda. He's just this stereotypical FBI chief who's no nonsense, whatever. It's fine. There's really nothing to his character other than he just pushes Will constantly, and because of that, Will suffers. Basically, Jack Crawford uses Will as a tool. And of course, yet again, the TV show does an amazing job with this. But the problem with the TV show in particular is that the TV show made Will Graham into this neurotic, into this paranoid, anxious. In the TV show, he's always anxious. He's always, it's kind of silly because in the book, Will Graham is kind of a chill guy. He fixes boats and he isn't so agitated all the time. In the book, he gets into in a certain mind state when he actually investigates crimes, because he, being an empath, a pure empath, he kind of puts himself in the shoes of the killer, and he kind of becomes the killer, which is fascinating. But what's truly fascinating is that Hannibal Lecter keeps on asking Will how he captured him. And Will Graham beats around the bush. And finally, Hannibal Lecter answers his own question, which is that in Hannibal Lecter's view, in his opinion, Will Graham is exactly the same as Hannibal Lecter. This is how he managed to capture him. And what I'm getting from this is that Hannibal Lecter is implying that that Will Graham is exactly like him, in the sense that he is not using his ability to be like Hannibal Lecter, being an empath. No. He is actually exactly like him. This is the key here, in a way, right? They say they share the same, psychology, if you want. It's so fascinating. And it's not necessarily because Will Graham can, put himself in the shoes of a killer. But of course, this book suffers from, what I like to call, plot convenience. For the sake of plot convenience, because, Hannibal Lecter, he's just so smart. He already has all of the answers even before the first question is asked. Even though Francis Dollarhide is just this absolute monster, somehow he, I guess, falls in love with this blind woman, and he spares her life for some reason, even though he is a pure psychopath, a pure monster. I guess that happens. It's for the sake of plot convenience, and somehow it's just so convoluted. It's just too much. But Francis Dollarhide fakes his own death in a kind of silly way, actually. and because everybody thinks that he killed himself with a shotgun to the head, this is how he can sneak and find where Will Graham is living, and he thus mutilates Will Graham for life. It's a bit too convoluted in my view. Yeah. And another thing that is a bit peculiar is the relationship between Francis Dollarhide and the actual Red Dragon. Because, of course, at the beginning, I thought that the Red Dragon was just a persona. Whereas in the book, it kind of seems that the Red Dragon is actually a real, legit entity in of itself. It's not just a persona that Francis Dollarhide has created and adopted. I don't think it's even multiple personality disorder, or I don't know what you want to call it, a split personality. It is actually a separate entity, I would say, an actual creature that kind of came into being because of all the trauma and all the rage, I guess. It was interesting to piece this together, and it is so interesting because Francis Dollarhide, for the most part, is extremely afraid of this Red Dragon creature that is living rent-free in his head. So peculiar, so unique, right? And another thing that is quite unique is his killing method, how he selects every family, and why there has to be, 2 daughters and a son. That is because of his past, his childhood, and to figure out why he breaks every mirror and why he puts mirror shards in his victim's eyes, and why he has this elaborate ritual. This is what I'm trying to say, and it's so in a way difficult to try to understand why he does all of this. Why he has to be so specific? Why does he have to carve, a symbol in a tree? And why does he have to arrange the bodies like this? And why does he have to kill the pets first, etc., etc.? And why does he wear the teeth of his deceased grandmother, etc., etc.? It is because, well, in part, it is because he is this way, is because throughout his life he was humiliated. He was subjected to absolute humiliation, to absolute shame and disgrace, and because he was emasculated every step of the way. This is why he becomes this rage-filled monster. Okay, this absolute monster. And of course, I'm not excusing his crimes, but it is, you can clearly see everything that has led up to this. Every action has a consequence. And it's just, I'm not even gonna cap. Thomas Harris does something amazing here. His masterful. What Thomas Harris does with the Red Dragon and Francis Dolarhyde, it is absolutely a masterful feat, okay, because he has such control over human psychology, and you can see that he knows exactly what he's doing, and because throughout his childhood Francis Dolarhyde was subjected to this emasculation and humiliation, he develops this uncontrollable rage, and he seeks absolute power beyond mere humans. And this is how the actual Red Dragon creature comes into being, okay? Yet again, this book overall is good. But you can clearly see as you read how dated it is. It's a bit dated, okay? It's in the 80s. The technology was crazy. What the people had to work with. It's a blast from the past. A bit. The only detriment or flaw or defect that this book has is in my opinion that there's just too much detailed forensic investigation. I understand that the author wanted to be genuine and authentic, and to show just how these organizations do their work, but it's just too much. To me, it's almost filler, where he has to describe in detail every type of investigation, every type of this, every type of that. It's a bit too much, and to me, it's a bit too unnecessary. But that's about it. If you enjoy this content, if you want to support your boy, I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. If the link does not work, you can search my name, Griffith Samsara. Thanks for watching. See ya.